Hi everyone, welcome to the World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. Today I'm going to talk about my lead up and all the things I had to do around the race, my race report and what I've got planned next for the season. So after a huge training block in Park City, Utah, we arrived 10 days out from the race here in Hawaii. We usually do that because it allows me time to adjust to the heat. Even though we did some heat adaptation, it sort of still takes a few days. And also enough time to get familiar with the course. So I think as well, one thing that was a little bit different this time is that we were coming from a higher altitude as well, down to sea level. And I think that yeah, it perhaps takes a little bit of time. Your body still actually needs to adjust to sea level. So yeah, the 10 days just gives us plenty of time to settle in and yeah, make it a little bit of a base and a home for the 10 days leading into the race. I think the first few days we really spent just kind of recovering from the training that we'd done leading into the race, and then we started to really hit some key training sessions out on the course. So we're at the scenic overlook on the Queen K. Today we're doing just a little startup session where we do some hill reps and some efforts. And so we come out a bit further onto the course to get away from the chaos around Kona, but it's such a beautiful spot to start from. Yeah, you can see, I think that's Maui behind me as well. So yeah, really excited to get things started. But yeah, just always that adjustment to the heat and everything, so yeah, should be fun. You can see the road coming up here. This is like the last big hill before you come back into Kona and the airport and stuff. So this is where things get real for a lot of people. And so it's good to get comfortable with there being still quite a fair way to go in the actual bike course from here. You can get complacent. I've actually been dropped just down the road myself, so you can get quite complacent that you're nearly home, but you're actually not. So it's good to do a bit of work around here to get your head around it. A lot of the time I think people that come to Hawaii maybe don't experience the course before race day, especially the back end of the course where, you know, it's quite a different environment, it's very isolated, and so we always try and make sure we find the time to head out to Hawaii, check out the wind directions out there, at around the same time that we'd be actually racing. So we did a few bigger rides and runs. We did quite a few rides out on the hillier sections of the Queen K through the lava fields, some hill reps, efforts, things like that. And then we also spent a fair bit of time running over the run course. A lot of the time people just spend their runs on Alley Drive, which is in the race probably the most enjoyable section of the run. But yeah, we spent most of our training out on the Queen K in the harder, hotter sections in the energy lab. So we did one major run in almost the middle of the day where we actually went into the energy lab and then built the run home in the middle of the day when we'd be doing it on race day. I guess with training here, I mean, the main thing to remember is that there's a lot of people that have come here, and not everybody is a full-time athlete, and so, you know, you've got to be cautious of the road rules and everything. And yeah, and I think it was quite busy, but it was good to see that everyone tried to do the right thing. The swimming pool gets very busy, and you almost, you know, you need to kind of come in a group and try and arrange a lane for your squad or your group that you train with, because it's very difficult to squeeze in as an individual. But yeah, generally I think it's a great place to actually train. I mean, mostly we only experienced it during the Ironman, but I think actually, I know Chelsea Sadari came here a few weeks before the race to actually get some training done. So I feel like the training we got leading into the race was like really on point and set us up, tuned me up really well for race day. The other thing around this race is all the media. It's the biggest race in the world, I think, for triathlon, in a sense of the viewership and just the general snowballing of all the media that goes around the race. And I think from being a sort of a top 10 athlete consistently here, I find that it can be quite draining. And so what we try to do is lock all our engagements in well in advance of coming here, because yeah, it's so difficult to then match up swimming pool opening times, training times, media times, and then also time to just shut it down and just have some time to myself. And this time, I think because we'd had 3 years without the race, it was like full gas. So I can't think of a day where we didn't actually do something for someone. And I enjoy doing that stuff, but also you have to find the time to relax. And yeah, even down to my rest day 2 days before the race, we had the Triathlon Australia team breakfast, the press conference, drug testing, registration, pro briefing. It just, it does really drain you. So my little trick and tip for race week here in Hawaii is to really not spend much time in the sun when you can avoid it, and trying to stay away from the expo and stuff until you have to go there, and make it a one-day effort to go and enjoy the expo, rather than just popping in and out all the time and being in the sun. I mean, you're here to race, and so I think it's important to try and make sure that leading up until the race that you do actually relax. And I know perhaps for the amateurs and age group athletes it's a little bit more difficult because you're here with your family, but yeah, I certainly make sure that I sort of I'm in pretty solid lockdown, focusing on mostly the training and just a daily plan for media and everything leading up to the race. So I think this is our third day here, or maybe sort of 3.5 days. So we're going to hit a hard run now. We're going to do 2 hours on the Queen K, the back section of the course, and so we'll run through the energy lab, and then we're going to push it out a little bit in the last 15 minutes, just headed towards home. So I'll get to relive my experience of 2019 on that last little hill before Palani. But yeah, this is probably our main heat adaptation run set. We don't typically run during the middle of the day, so today it doesn't look as hot as normal, but yeah, we're trying to get used to the heat, I guess, in our final long run. It was a 2-hour run which included an hour and 45, I would say, tempo, not easy, and then 15-minute drop down, 20-minute drop down, sorry, an hour 40, 20, yeah. It's a 2-hour run.
How you feeling?
Pretty good, actually, yeah. That's what happens when you taper a little bit, though. We just got a race training week leading in. Yeah. It's warm. It's certainly warm.
How are you feeling, Cam? You've been out here all day.
Well, I get a bit of air conditioning in the car, so I can't really complain, but I sometimes do. Yeah. It's pretty mild. Ever since we landed on the island, I feel like it's the calm before the storm. Yeah, kind of plan for the worst, expect the worst, and hope for the best. Yeah.
So I guess you get all of that stuff done, and at the end of the day, your training matters, but it should have been done weeks ago, and mostly you can just unravel yourself in the heat leading into the race. But you know, as long as you can kind of recover a little bit and get yourself settled, it leads to race day. So I guess the race for me, I was super excited. I was actually really stressed out about this race. I think because it's been so long, and then also there's been question marks over my earlier racing as to the competitiveness of them. But one thing that we make sure we do with my season is that we focus on this being the peak of my performance of the year. And so we don't kind of, I guess, you know, I don't just race races to for the sake of it. We race them very strategically so that we're ready for the Hawaiian Ironman. And I guess with those doubts was like, I had some doubt in my mind as to how much drive and determination I would have on race day to push when things got difficult. And I think it's because, you know, I've had a couple of years of just sort of rough results and question marks and all those kind of things. And so, yeah, I was a little nervous for that. I think, you know, you have the expectation of being a consistent top 10 and podium placing athlete. And so, you know, it made me almost sick. I was pretty stressed out. But, you know, it comes to race day and you're so well drilled at being ready for a race and preparing in the morning that the day just takes care of itself. I think half the stress is the night before, and once you wake up and you start getting things sorted, and as long as you've got to process it, it's kind of a lot easier. But we got down real early. I don't like to leave anything sort of to chance, and so I try and make sure that I'm here real early so that if something goes wrong, we've got time to address it. Or if you've forgotten something or anything, you've got time still to address it. I think pushing the boundary of time is not good. I've had flat tires in transition before and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, all my equipment was prepared like really well by my team. I have support here from Canyon and SRAM Zip, and they made sure that my bike was super ready to go. And so we just took it out the day before, we racked it, and I knew that that was going to be all sweet. And there wasn't actually a lot to do in transition race morning. Yeah, everything's pretty much dialed. And as you know, with an Ironman, you put everything in transition. So really it's just clipping the shoes on and putting the nutrition on the bike to make sure that, you know, checking that the batteries are all still good and that sort of stuff, but it's pretty simple. So we actually had quite a bit of spare time. We didn't have any drama, so we had spare time, which I just spend and I find a quiet space. It's pretty hard when there's 5,000 athletes. I think we had 2,800 or 2,400, maybe 2,000 females, perhaps some 3,000 males on the males day. So there were people everywhere and all their support people as well. So we tried to find somewhere quite quiet, and I just sort of stretched and rolled my back and got ready for the race. But before we knew it, we were actually being called into the water. One amazing thing about having a women's only race is the cannon was for us this time, which was pretty cool. And we definitely had all the media on us. You know, and I guess this year, one thing that's probably different, it was an expectation we had all season, was the level of the swim was rising. There were more people coming through, that were going to create a new pack that is still kind of forming. And I think over the next year or so, we might see a group that was ahead of my group was still kind of shattered in this race. But the gun went off, and obviously Lucy goes off, but now you've got Pamela Oliveira, who led out the Olympics, I believe. We've got, you know, Fenella, Landridge, you've got Vet Clark, and those girls with Lauren Brandon, they're heading out to try and catch Lucy. I think they ended up breaking up a fair bit, but I formed a really nice group with Hayley Chura, Lisa Norden, Sarah True, Chelsea Sodaro, and Sky Monch. And then behind us, I believe, was Daniela Riff, Annie Haag, Danielle Blymel, and Laura Phillip, plus a few others. So yeah, I think actually Jocelyn McCauley was in our group as well. So we had a really good swim group. It settled in, and then it was a line, and we didn't have any drama, and I think we sort of held a fairly reasonable gap. Often the gap forms pretty early in the swim, and then it sort of sits there. So we got out the water, and I think we were maybe 3 minutes down to Lucy, and then we were 3 minutes ahead of the next group. One thing about Hawaii is the first 10 kilometers of the bike is where people shake out other competitors, and we try and drop people and settle groups in and things like that. And so I was well aware of this when I was sort of planning my strategy for Transition 1. And so I actually left my helmet on my bike, which was only done by maybe one other athlete. I know Hayley Chura had her helmet on her bike, but I wanted to put full focus onto literally just putting my speed suit in the bag and making sure that my suit was on correctly whilst I ran through transition, which I think was a good move in the end, because it let me, once I zipped it up, I had the volunteer kind of help me pull it up, and then I zipped it up and I was running through transition. I could go full gas. And these days, I mean, with ITU background and everything, putting a helmet on and grabbing your bike is pretty simple. We do it mostly every race. So that went smoothly for me, and we almost had a little breakaway, a mini breakaway with me, Jocelyn, and Lisa Norden from Sky, Chelsea, and maybe Sarah True. And so, yeah, but I sort of we kept pushing real hard for the first 10 kilometers, and when we hit Kilkenny, my coach was there to shout to tell us to try and drop Chelsea because, well, we all know what happened, and we knew that she'd be in that sort of form perhaps, so we were trying to get rid of her, but I actually put in another big effort up Palani to try and break it up a little bit, and it was very close to shattering, but I mean, we don't know what's going on behind us, by the way, as well, because that was the first chance we had to see Danny, Lucy, etc. And they weren't as far behind. There was some people that have definitely improved their swim, I believe. Like, I think Laura Phillip has improved it dramatically. And so that group surprised me. But yeah, so we got settled in on the bike, and probably 40 Ks in was where my day turned to shit, and your heart sinks. I had a penalty, and I can take responsibility for it because I knew what to do that was right, but it was also a little subjective in a professional race. So the group was going through an aid station, and I was second. I took a drink, and then on the other side of the aid station, Lisa Norden sat up, and I made the choice that I don't know why, but I was like, well, I don't want to go to the front, so I'm not going to go to the front. But in that time of her slowing up, I've then squeezed into the 12 meters. And really what you should do in that moment is just to ride past. Like, that literally is a solution. And I didn't, and shortly after that, we were back on the highway in fully gapped up nicely with the 12 meters, and I received a penalty for it. And so, yeah, my heart sank. I didn't know what to do. I sat up, I rolled to the back, I was frustrated. I tried to speak to the official, as you always do. It's usually a brick wall, as it always is. So I was on the back, and I thought, well, perhaps maybe I can help these girls, like, my day's done kind of thing. And so I said to Sky, as I was going past, well, I'm done, so I'm going to help you guys get up to the next group. And so I just put in a big surge, and we pulled ourselves up to, I think it was Lauren Brandon and Rebecca Clark. And then I had to basically, after doing that, it was pretty much the penalty tent for me at Waikoloa. And then 2 minutes after I arrived, Laura arrived too, and she was really upset. And I guess, you know, in those moments, you sort of, well, this is Kona, it's the World Championships. We've spent so much time, you've followed the videos, you know how much effort we're putting into the preparation. It's not like we can just pull out, or you can't give up. You just can't give up, it's too much. And so Laura was really upset, and we were trying to sort of find a way to motivate ourselves. And luckily Matt Lieto was actually there on the moto, and he sort of said to us, like, you girls know that people have won this race from a penalty of 5 minutes. You can still do it. And I think, you know, it just kind of put the possibility in your head that you could try. And so, yeah, after the penalty, it was very slow going for me to get my power back up. For some reason, it was gone. And Laura actually got started real quick, and she sort of made her way back up to the pack really quickly. I took a bit longer, but then I feel like I had a really good back end of my bike. I was solo. I started picking people up, and I think I moved from maybe 16th or something back up into 13th, and I was 12 minutes down off the bike, and a couple of the media guys were saying it's not so bad, just limit the damage, you know, you're not in a bad spot. And I guess maybe riding on my own may have been a good thing because I could pace my own race, and so I actually felt really good coming off the bike. I ran through transition, I grabbed a water bottle off the back. I actually saved a full bottle to run through transition and cool myself a little bit. I actually took a little extra time than I normally would in T2 just to calm down, to realise, to kind of process what I needed to do. And then I headed out onto the run, and I started feeling super amazing. So we got these new Hoka fast shoes that have been really super cool. I used them at Santa Cruz, and actually it made me feel like just really on air, like quite soft, and it felt really good. I had no joint soreness, nothing like that. And so I sort of thought, well, actually it's possible that I could have a really good run here. It was like a dead rubber. I was running for not much, but I thought if I could peg a few people back, then I can sort of recoup some of my day that we've trained so hard for. But then when I got to mile 3, I noticed there was a big group of girls coming back at mile 4. So I knew then it was 800 meters from the turnaround, and I'm like, well, that's only like, you know, for track laps, and I can, you know, in a 40-minute run, I can lap people in that much amount of time, like 2 or 3 times. So I'm like, well, I can actually catch them by halfway. So I just sort of managed to, I guess it motivated me, and then I guess maybe I grabbed, I made sure that I was grabbing all the nutrition and the drink and sticking to the plan as much as possible, because despite not being where I want to be in the race, or where I should be in the race, you can easily get distracted by, you know, the negative thought of that. And so I made sure that we stuck to the process and the plan. And then, yeah, I started to peg people back, and I guess I got out to the energy lab, and by then I'd passed like 3 or 4 people, and Sky was just up the road, and yeah, and I was just running better than most people, and I guess it's the experience perhaps of the race, and yeah, and once I passed Sky, that was it. There was not really anyone else I could see, but I had heard out on the course that Daniela was struggling, and so I thought, well, I'll just consolidate, because I'd run pretty hard to that point, and I'll consolidate. There's not a lot to run for, and if I make a mistake at that point, I could lose a lot more than I could gain. So I just kept the first 40 minutes of the 1 hour back into town pretty gentle. But as I got closer to Palani, I actually saw Daniela walking, and I was getting updates that it was perhaps 50 seconds only. So I actually thought, oh, why not? Let's give this a crack. And so at the bottom of Palani, I think the 50 seconds had dropped to 30 seconds, and then running along Kilkenny, I grabbed another 10 seconds, and then down the I'm not sure the name of the street, but the little side street before Ali'i Drive, I almost ran up onto her shoulder, but I was very nervous about what had happened a few years earlier with Lucy, and I knew it had to be a firm pass, and so I sat back. I just sort of sat up for a tiny bit just to give myself some air, because I'd pushed so hard, it hurt so bad. And then as soon as we turned on to Ali'i Drive, I just sent it, like, I gave it everything I had, a full sprint, so that Danny didn't have time to react. So you can get like 20 or 30 meters on someone really quickly like that, then it's very difficult within another 100 meters for them to make their way back if you can just run your regular race pace. So we sort of made the gap, and then yeah, I made it to the finish, finished 7th. Pretty much collapsed, taken in a wheelchair, usual story for me. Yeah, I guess I feel like it's the most frustrating but good result. One of the best results I've had, but the most frustrating race I've had, because I knew I should have been there. I should have been right there, and it leaves you wondering, maybe you know, if you're in the race, you're obviously going to run faster, you're going to have assistance from the group on the bike. You're not going to be running from so far behind. So I guess, you know, they're all question marks for next year, but the main thing that I got out of this race is that I definitely still have the fight in me. It's definitely burning solidly strong, and so yeah, it's really exciting now to be able to move into next year with such a great season behind me, and maybe start off on the front foot and be able to, you know, pick the races we want to do to make sure that I'm ready again next year, and to have an even better result next time. There's a lot of talking, but I had to. It's the World Championship.
Yeah, I mean...
So what's next for me? Well, I guess it's a bit of time relaxing. We're actually heading to California this week to do some stuff with Canyon North America, and yeah, check out Oakley and say hi to the guys there. And then we head back to Salt Lake just for a couple of days to consolidate all the belongings, and then yeah, we'll head home. And I'm really excited to head home. Actually, I put so much effort and energy into this race that I'm actually quite drained and ready to be home. But we'll slowly build up for, I hope, Ironman Western Australia. I still have to have that conversation with my coach, which means there might be a small race or something in between, because there's still 8 weeks until that race. And then after that, perhaps it's an easier start to next season, and definitely some more time in Australia, I think, before heading overseas again. So yeah, we're still on, there's still things going on, and so watch this space. Check out my next video. We'll talk maybe about my last few years and things that have happened. But yeah, like, follow, share, everything else. Follow me on socials as well. And yeah, I hope to see everyone at the next race.